Caius Whitefang, pack leader of Scourge Alliance here, and I am on the PTS, and I want to go over some of these changes with you guys. How they're going to affect you in PvP and in PvE. What still needs to be fixed with them, and what needs tweaked to have them be effective. Alright, so let's get started. First change on the docket, pack leader. Your direwolves no longer grant minor maim, so the damage reduction that you got from them there, that 15%, is gone off the wolves, but you now, as pack leader, take 10% less damage all the time. That's a good buff. Taking 10% less damage from your opponents from all angles, from all sources is awesome. The archers on the wall, the random mobs in the dungeons with their bows, 10% less damage. So, great effect. Your direwolves will still ensnare your opponents, so they'll still apply snares to them. And you grant minor courage to yourself and allies. Currently, that is not showing up on your character sheet, so they'll need to make sure that that shows there. Another thing that's going on with the pack leader is Call of the Pack. So you can see that they've added in the direwolf part there. So when you have werewolves or direwolves in your group, it reduces the cost of remaining in werewolf form. So it's going to slow down that timer, allow you to stay in werewolf form a little bit longer. That's good for solo players or people that want to just pal around in werewolf form. You get 60% reduced time in werewolf, so that's nice. Reducing that timer speed. So the other thing with that though is it's bugged at the moment, so that it's only working when you're out of combat. When you're in combat, your direwolves don't count for that, so that's a buff or a bug they're going to need to fix. Pack leader is definitely an interesting choice. It's thematic. You're going to not want a whole raid of pack leaders because you don't really gain a lot of benefit out of that. So it's kind of have a couple of them in your group, one or two, depending on your group size. Give you those buffs. Kind of cool. Berserker itself hasn't changed, so we can go ahead and look at the next one here. So Feral Pounce, or Pounce itself, it has gained this secondary effect. So you use it, you pounce to your target, and then, as you can see, I'm going to activate the ability, and it's going to put a dot on a target. So you pounce, and then in the next 5 seconds, you can cast Carnage, and that's going to put another dot on the enemy. So in practice, I'm not a huge fan of this mechanic, mainly because you have to use pounce no matter what. So if you're right next to your target, you still need to pounce, and then you can apply your other effect. So you basically have to cost or use 6,000 some stamina to get this dot going on them. I would prefer if they changed that around and you use pounce. If you're X meters away from it, it's going to default to using pounce. If you're within melee range of the target, it will do carnage. That's kind of the way I'd like to see them go with it. As of right now, it's not really worth using in PvE or PvP, and that's not good when your base morph doesn't really work in either scenario. Let me explain a little bit why. Alright, so if you are chasing this target here and you jump to them, and they're still moving, you have 5 seconds where you won't be able to pounce on them again. You're just going to have to kind of chase after them. So this ability to to just kite werewolves even more, it's bad. That's not good. You know, they took the CC away from our howl so we couldn't CC a target that was running away from us, and now they're basically taking away our ability to pursue targets. I mean, we're werewolves, right? One of the freaking passives in our line is called Pursuit, and we are one of the easiest things to kite in the game. So they need to change how that works because it's not going to be very effective in combat for PvP or for PvE. Next thing with the morphs here, Brutal Pounce, you get some AoE damage out of that now instead, and Brutal Carnage is an AoE effect too. That's a little bit better, and you get ramped up on damage to 100% is the top there, so you get 100% extra weapon damage for each enemy that you hit with Brutal Carnage. That's pretty cool, because there you're going to get an extra 600 weapon damage for 6 seconds, so, or for 10 seconds if you hit 6 targets. But it will fall on the same effect where if you are trying to chase down a target, it's going to be hard. It's going to be frustrating in PvP. And in PvE, you're going to wish that you could just, if you were next to a target, that you're just going to be able to hit it once. And maybe it's because they changed the way that the animation looks on the leap and made it take too long to get to your target as you kind of float around in your pounce. Bugs out pretty easy, and the ability itself doesn't sound that good, and it just cheap rip-off of Claws of Life for the animation. So I wish they could have done something a little bit different with that, but let's move on to the heals. So first and foremost, the base heal, you see that you get 3,000 stamina when you heal yourself at full health, and you gain major brutality at all times. That's nice. That's a nice change. For PvP, you always had the dilemma of whether or not you're going to be using a brutality and savagery potion and then just be out of luck on your magicka or whatever other effects you want to be used, whether it's a movability. Now you have those on you at all times, so that's a nice addition to PvP. That's going to be some nice damage that we see there, and the ability to use other potions instead is going to be good. As far as PvE, the whole effect itself, where you have to heal yourself at full health, that's a little unrealistic. The only time you're really going to see yourself doing that is when you're fighting a dummy. So, not super effective, not super reliable, and is going to be a frustrating experience, because if you are using 5,000 some magicka and you can only use that ability 3 times before you're out of magicka, or less if you're using a stamina health food, it's going to be a little frustrating. You're almost never going to be at 100% health. You're going to need someone to put shields on you to make sure you get to 100% health, and it's not going to be a good situation to use reliably. And that's what you want, is reliable abilities doing things that you want them to do when you want them to do it. And that's going to lead into Hircine's Rage, and the issue with that, same situation. The effect that you gain there is Major Berserk. Awesome. Super powerful ability, super powerful buff, very cool effect. You know, some might say borderline OP, but that's okay. That's okay because they built in a Kiss Curse to it. So, yes, you gain Major Berserk, but you also take 23% more damage. Alright, That's fair. But, same thing. You gotta heal yourself when you're at full health. And if you only got 3 heals in your tank, and you use one of them at the very beginning when you're full health, now you only got 2 heals. And guess what? You're also taking 23% more damage. So they still need to figure out something to do with the heal. It's too expensive. It costs too much. You have to build so far out of this spec that is this dangerous, high damage dealing, quick opponent on the battlefield, because you still have this weird hybrid tank heal as your primary heal. Because you know you can't use Claws of Life effectively in PvP. It just doesn't work. First and foremost, that dot on there, it only will be doing half the damage at the very minimum to this tooltip in PvP because of how everything scales. And I'm not sure how the healing is gonna scale there either, because now heals are cut in half, or were cut in half, but now they are reduced by 60%. So that tiny heal that you got before is even smaller. And the fact that this dot is not standardized with the other dots in the game, everything else goes off every second. Claws of Life still goes off every 2 seconds. So that gives the enemy raid ample time for this Claws of Life heal to never go off, and that's where it's supposed to thrive. It's supposed to thrive when there's 10 opponents around you, right? You're supposed to be able to reliably whack them and then get a good heal out of it. But since you're only getting that heal on targets that you're doing damage to, or that the ability is doing damage to, and they got 2 seconds for somebody to cast Purge, or someone to cleanse the ability or cloak, that's not a reliable heal unless you're attacking guards. And I mean, if we're balancing abilities off of what we can do to guards, then we're in trouble. So we go back to the heal here, and they talk about trying to fix sustain, and all they do is give you more stamina. And the biggest problem with Werewolf is the Magica issue, right? The huge demand for high Magica regeneration, for a large Magica pool, on top of having to build for a large health pool. You know? It's it still needs work, still needs help. And if they're going to keep it the way that it is, they gotta reduce the cost. And they gotta, the big thing, right, is they gotta make it so it doesn't have to be 100% health. Like, that's never gonna happen. Thanks for giving me an ability or a perk that it's never gonna happen in PvP. Because, like, why am I gonna use that heal when I'm at full health? Effectively taking out one of the few heals I have in my tank, you know? Alright, enough ranting about Hircine's Bounty. Let's keep moving. Fortitude. That is a little bit better there. You get some health and stamina recovery. 5% of the healing done. Up to 66%. Which is pretty good. Just makes it a better version of what it was before. So that's nice. Still need to figure out the heal yourself at full health kind of thing. It's really only going to help a werewolf that's just running across the field and ensuring that he can keep sprinting while all of his buddies ride past him on their horses. And leave them more vulnerable to ganking or something. But so let's say you did a 10k heal in PvP, and that's that's going to be a big heal, right? And 5%. Is a 500. So if you get off a 10k heal in PvP, you might get 500 health regen, stamina recovery. Still gotta fix the issue with the magicka recovery. Gotta figure out a way how to give magicka back to werewolves. I mean, does it go into pursuit? Do you gain magicka when you do a magicka and stamina when you do a heavy attack? That might be nice. Might focus on keeping werewolves in combat, up close against their enemies. They're going to be able to keep healing as long as they keep getting off heavy attacks, and if you can keep them at a distance, if you can snare them because they're still weak to snares, there's counterplay, and it fits into their ideal of what a werewolf should be. And that might be the best idea and the easiest way to do it. Give them a unique feature of gaining stamina and magicka back on heavy attacks. Alright, next you have your roar. It's kind of what they did with the heal there. You gain major savagery. So just for having it on your werewolf bar, just for transforming, you gain both major brutality and major savagery. That's nice. Like I said before, in PvP that's going to be good because you can use a magicka potion because you're going to need it. Still going to need to just choke down magicka potions as a stam class. Okay, so your two morphs, first being ferocious there, your heavy attacks are 33% faster for 7 seconds after casting. While slotted, you gain that major savagery, and you set your opponents off balance. So that's kind of the base there, right? Is you set opponents off balance no matter what. That's cool. The heavy attack, that doesn't make much sense. Maybe it was supposed to be with the other light and heavy changes that they were going to do, because that could have been a nice little damage booster. But they don't do as much damage as they did on the previous PTS, that off cycle. So I feel like this kind of missed getting its identity given it to it. It's supposed to be the damage morph, but it really isn't going to do too much for you. You're better off going with Deafening Roar in all cases. I mean, here you may, if you're doing like a PvP build with Night Slayer, and you're just cheesing as much as you can with those heavy attacks, and just rapid firing off Night Slayer hits. If that's what you want to do, this is the morph, but I feel like we should do something else with that. It's not very ferocious in any other setup. For deafening there, you still got that major fracture. That's awesome. You gain minor maim on your targets. That's good. You're going to be tankier. If you're a berserker, you have the ability to have that minor maim on your targets, so a little bit of survival there. That's going to be needed. Going on to Piercing Howl. So you'll see that you do more damage to targets that are facing you. Could affect the other previous iterations of the increased damage on these abilities had to do with hitting a target that was feared. So that still remains here in Howl of Agony. When you hit a target that's feared, they take more damage. But in PvE, your bosses were never feared. So there was no reason to really pick that morph. Maybe for bursting down some ads or something. High value targets like that. In PvP, you weren't very likely to hit a good player with that combo. So if you were to fear a target, and try to hit them with Howl of Agony, unless it's a super laggy environment. Good players aren't going to get hit by it. You're better off if you're looking to nuke some noobs. You could do that and just lay into them with a couple of those howls. But for the most part, you're better off just hitting them with 2 howls anyway. So the change to that is nice. It is not working on PTS. You do not do more damage to targets that are facing you. The feared part is working, but the facing you is not. It works on the base morph, and it works on Howl of Despair. Works on both of those, but not on this guy here. So they gotta fix that. Howl of Despair, you get that extra 10% damage when the enemy is facing you, so it's nice that you don't miss out on everything by trying to help out other players. So that's cool. Kind of wish there was a way for you yourself to activate Feeding Frenzy, but got to team up with another wolf, right? They hunt in packs. Claws of Life, there really wasn't any changes here to talk about. So I think out of all the abilities that Werewolf had, Claws of Life, Claws of Anguish were some of the best abilities that it had in its toolkit. So I'm glad that they didn't try to overtune those. I think those were great. Having Major Defile is good. Get that for 4 seconds. Same thing with the disease. One thing to note on that, since you're not actually hitting your target with Minor Defile, it's not going to work on Argonians. Argonians are immune to disease. So just keep that in mind, that it's not going to be as effective on an Argonian enemy. You still do the Major Defile, which is good, but they will not get the disease stat effect, which then in turn procs Minor Defile for 4 seconds. As soon as we get the Howl fixed, I'll be able to let you guys know what kind of damage that Werewolf will be able to push. As of right now, though, I'm coming out at the same amount of DPS that I can do on live. Slightly higher. And I'm talking like 0.5% higher. So nothing to write home about, and that's with the use of that brutality, the new execute mechanic, and trying to work in Hercine's Rages. I've done a lot of different setups, a lot of different builds, and I'm going to keep playing around here on the PTS and see what's the most effective setup going forward. But at the moment, we're not seeing anything crazy. We're not pushing 95, 100k DPS. Still on a trial dummy, 82, 83k DPS on a 6 million dummy, 6 million. I'll load some of those videos up here in the next few days for you guys to see and kind of talk about the rotation and what we're doing there and CP distribution and stuff like that. So I hope this was informative, and happy hunting. See you out there.